The sky above Obrex 6 was the color of rusted blood, thick with copper-tasting dust that never settled and never truly blew away. Beneath it, Station R4 lay buried in silence, a decaying skeleton of failed ambition, its spires shattered like ribs poking out from ash and gravel. A shuttle cut through the stillness with a low surgical hiss. Its landing thrusters expelled twin spirals of red dust swirling like summoned spirits around the fractured perimeter. Then the ramp hissed open. She stepped down, Valena of Krith, operative of the Krith Vanguard, armored in reflective black plating that shimmered faintly with the colors of dying stars. Tall, unreadable, and wrong for this place, not just alien to the planet, but alien to what was left of purpose. Her eyes were sharp slits of violet under a visor that scanned the outpost with surgical precision. Station R4 had no right to still be standing, and yet it was whispering. Her boots touched the cracked ferrocrete with a whisper of static. The moment her heel clicked, the station groaned, a deep, shuddering creak that sounded almost like breath. Valena stilled. Something was alive down here, and that was impossible. The mission had been simple: recover the fragment, a piece of human tech with hybrid potential, valuable, dangerous, and already buried beneath 5 years of classified silence. Her orders were clear: retrieve it, neutralize all threats, and return. No interaction, no deviation, no witnesses. And yet, there was a voice. "I told you, Wrench, I own your soul now. Obey me or perish. Also, please pass the wrench." Valena froze mid-step. She hadn't expected resistance. Certainly not that. She activated thermal, then low light, then electromagnetic. No guards, no drones, but their faint a heat signature, human. She moved with the kind of fluid precision that made even shadows hesitate. One corridor, then another. The walls buzzed with the old static lights flickering like dying stars. She slipped into what might once have been a mess hall and stopped. There, sitting cross-legged on top of a broken crate and surrounded by scattered parts of what might have been a drone or a blender, was a man. Hair wild, uniform in tatters, a spoon in one hand, a can of chili fusion variant spicy in the other. He looked up. She aimed her pulse rifle. He blinked. "You one of ours?" No response. "You look like you might be one of ours, but you've got that tall, mysterious alien assassin energy. No offense, it's a good look. But I'm mid-bite here, so if you're gonna kill me, do it after dessert." Valena said nothing. "Name's Eli. Eli Mercer, PFC. Technically, division's complicated. Welcome to my kingdom of rust and sarcasm." She stepped forward. "Stand. Drop the can." He sighed. "Do you know how hard it is to open a can with a screwdriver?" And desperation another step forward. He raised his hands, still holding the chili. "Fine, but if you vaporize me, this galaxy loses its last can of edible food." Valena paused, because despite the madness, the grime, and the pathetic heat signature, this man wasn't afraid. Then the ceiling collapsed. With a scream of old metal and a shudder that rippled down to the bones of the world, a support beam dropped between them and dust exploded across the chamber like a punch to the lungs. Silence, a cough. "Still alive," he called from behind the rubble. Valena coughed. "Yes, well, that's either impressive or deeply disappointing." She pushed herself up, scanning. "No serious injury. I'll find another route." "No rush," he replied. "I've got chili and a spoon." She crawled through the debris, slid between collapsed beams, and emerged in the same room, just as he extended the spoon toward her, like a peace treaty between dying civilizations. "Figured you earned it," Eli said. "Besides, you look like you haven't eaten since the third starfall." She stared. At the spoon, at the man, at the ridiculous, maddening calm of a human who had no business being alive, and yet was. And beneath the floor, deep in the forgotten coils of this station, something stirred a heartbeat in the dark. Valena didn't know it yet, but this wasn't a recovery mission. This was the start of a war no one remembered starting, and she had just met the only human crazy enough to help her end it. The can hissed softly as Valana peeled back the warped lid with surgical precision, as if diffusing a mine. Steam curled up in a greasy ribbon, and for a moment, just one, she hesitated. It smelled good. Not by Krith standards, certainly not by protocol, but after 3 days on nutrient packs that tasted like calcified regret, the oily, spicy aroma of chili fusion variant. Spicy hit her like a whispered betrayal. Eli Mercer, still seated cross-legged on his crate, grinned like a man watching a miracle unfold in slow motion. "I call it diplomacy," he said. "Nothing says trust like mystery meat in molten sauce." Valana sat, not because she trusted him, not because the chili convinced her, but because the station was whispering again. Subtle pulses of electromagnetic current flickering through her HUD. Every scan returned the same strange reading, layered static in the infrastructure, voices coded in dust. She needed to eat, she needed to think, and unfortunately, she needed him. "I don't understand you," she said, spoon poised. "That's fair, most people don't. But to be honest, I don't think you understand you either." She paused. He was already scooping up another bite like this was a picnic and not the slow unwinding of a buried war crime. No defense protocols, no sensors triggered. "You've been here alone for months." "Why?" "Because I got left behind," Eli said. "They thought I died, or maybe they hoped I did. I'm not picky." She studied his face, tired but not broken, scruffy but sharp-eyed. He wasn't a soldier anymore, not really, but he wasn't lost either. "You're calm," she said. "I'm fed," he replied, gesturing at the can. "And I've been talking to a reprogrammed cleaning drone for entertainment. Your company is a step up even if you did point a gun at my head 10 minutes ago." Her visor flickered pulse sensors, picking up something below them again, this time stronger. A frequency burst buried under old power grids. Residual energy curled like a warning beneath her boots. "There's something still alive in this station," Valana murmured. Eli glanced at the ceiling. "That'd be the ghost in sub-level 4. He mostly just flickers lights and whispers about taxes. But if you mean the core, yeah, it still hums. I've been avoiding it." Her eyes locked on his. "Why?" "Because I'm a lot of things, lady, but I'm not suicidal. The last guy who tried poking it got folded like laundry in a gravity well. We don't talk about Carl. You had a team briefly. Most of them evacuated during the breach. Some didn't make it. The rest didn't come back for me." He wiped his hands on his pants. "I don't blame them. That rift made everyone see things." Valana stiffened. "Rift?" Eli sighed. "Yeah, a tear, not big enough to collapse the station, but big enough to mess with time, gravity, and anyone dumb enough to study it without shielding." She stood, fast. "You buried a dimensional rupture under 6 feet of broken tile and leftover chili." "I didn't bury it," Eli said. "I just inherited it." She tapped her wrist. A pulse scan shot into the floor, returned with a fractured wave pattern, unstable, growing, and worst of all, keyed to the Krith relay language. Her people had known, her superiors had lied. "Show me the way," she said. Eli frowned. "To the rift." "Are you serious? You said it's growing. I can feel the pull now. If this station collapses into itself, the breach could destabilize the entire ridge." He looked at her for a long time, then slowly stood. "Okay. But don't say I didn't warn you when we start seeing time ghosts and whispering vending machines." "Time ghosts?" she asked. "You'll see." They crossed through the remains of the hall wires dangling like vines, lights flickering in lazy Morse. Valana's armor pulsed softly, scanning everything. A few feet behind, Eli muttered under his breath as they passed a pile of scrap that looked vaguely like a melted surveillance bot. "So what's your name anyway?" he asked. "Valana." "Just Valana of Krith. Vanguard Operative, Class 9. "That sounds exhausting." "It is." They reached a reinforced hatch. Eli kicked it twice, then rapped it in a specific rhythm. The door groaned, then slid open a quarter inch as if annoyed to be disturbed. "Ladies first," he said. Valana stepped through and into the dark belly of the station. Beneath them, the pulse grew louder. Steady, ancient, hungry. Whatever was down here hadn't finished waking up, but it had heard her ear. The corridor narrowed as they descended walls, sweating rust-light strips buzzing with half-dead life. The deeper Valana and Eli moved, the more the station shed its skin of abandonment and began muttering secrets in broken frequencies. It wasn't sound, it was pressure, a vibration behind the eyes, like a song she didn't know she remembered, the kind of static that slips through helmets and dreams. Valana paused near a junction, eyes narrowing behind her visor. "Did you hear?" That Eli didn't answer immediately. He was staring at a console embedded in the wall, half shattered yet pulsing faintly with green light. "Define that," he said finally, "because I'm hearing a woman reciting coordinates backwards, and I'm 80% sure I'm not having a stroke." She turned toward the console. The glow pulsed in sync with her gauntlet's internal telemetry. Her suit hardened against radiation timeshare, and psychic echoes was still struggling to filter it out. "This frequency is wrong," she muttered. "It's not native, not from your tech." "Well, that makes sense," Eli said dryly, "because nothing on this station is native anymore. It's all patchwork and ghosts." He pointed to a faded emblem on the wall beneath a sheet of grime. Valana wiped it with her gauntlet. It wasn't human, and it wasn't Kryth. Her blood went cold. "The Paradox Crown," she whispered. Eli frowned. "Sounds ominous." "It is. A deep faction, forgotten, supposedly extinct after the Rift War. They used tech like this recursive command nodes, quantum imprinting memory traps disguised as navigation systems." "Okay," Eli said slowly. "That sounds like a lot of words I didn't want to hear before lunch." She turned to him. "They believed reality could be rewritten if you tricked it into remembering wrong. You're saying this station is what? Haunted by ideas." "I'm saying," she replied, "this whole place is a static recording stuck on loop, and we just walked into its playback range." The console sparked. Once, then again. A hollow voice spilled out female distorted familiar, in the way a scream is familiar. "After you've already dreamed it, relay 0 breached. Crown artifact unstable. Countdown inverts at 0. Return to core." Return to the message cut out with a snap of fried circuitry. Eli stepped back. "Okay, first of all, no. Second of all, absolutely not." Valana was already moving. "This confirms it," she said. This station wasn't just a backwater outpost. It was a containment site. They rounded the corner into a wide bay, the walls flickering with ghost light. And that's when they saw it. A rift. Smaller than the reports from the war, only a few meters wide, but unmistakable. Hanging in the air like a rip in the fabric of space. Its edges shimmered with pale fire. Its core pulsed black-blue like a heartbeat in negative space. No sound, just the wrongness of it, like gravity forgetting itself. Eli stared. "That's not just a tear." "No," Valana said. "It's an anchor, a memory knot." He looked at her. "Which means what exactly?" "It means someone's trying to bring something back, and they're using this station as a recording needle." They stood there for a moment, staring into the impossible. Then her visor pinged. Movement, not from the rift. Behind them. She turned fast, weapon drawn, but there was no one there, just static, leaking from the walls. The lights flickered overhead, and when they came back, there was a new message on the console. "Welcome home, Valana." Her stomach dropped. She didn't say anything. She couldn't, because somehow it knew her name. Valana didn't blink. She couldn't afford to. The words still pulsed across the cracked console screen, glitching like a heartbeat caught in interference. "Welcome home, Valana." Eli stepped back. "Okay, not to overreact, but that console just doxed you, and it's not even plugged in." She said nothing, just stared at the flickering text pulse, slowing breath held like the moment before a sniper's trigger pull. "How does it know your name?" Eli asked quietly. "I don't know," she said, but she did. Somewhere deep in the bones of her memory, a whisper uncoiled, a forgotten briefing classified above her former rank, sealed in an archive under Thalian black script. Crown Tech. It didn't log your presence through sensors or pings. It read you, not your armor, your thoughts. Eli moved toward the screen. Maybe it's just a trick. Voice sampling, biosignal mimicry. No, Valana interrupted. This thing isn't repeating data, it's listening. To what? To us, she said. To me. The console flared again, the screen tearing down the middle with a shriek of distorted code. Then a new message appeared, signal found. Thread reestablished. Host match 92%. Begin calibration. Before they could react, the rift across the bay pulsed. Not violently, not with heat or force. With recognition. It tilted toward them, as if it had just noticed. Valana grabbed Eli by the collar and yanked him down behind a half-collapsed support beam. Down, a bolt of cold slammed through the air above them. Not fire, not light, something that stole momentum. Time paused just a fraction, long enough for her gauntlet sensors to trip every warning she'd coded into them. Then it passed, and the rift calmed. "Okay," Eli said from the floor, breath ragged. "I think that thing just tried to think me into soup." Valana stood slowly. "We triggered a handshake. Whatever's on the other side, whatever's inside it, thinks I'm someone else." Eli blinked. "That's supposed to be comforting." "No," she said. "It means someone used me as a blueprint." The realization hit her like a sniper round to the gut. This wasn't just a paradox crown relay, this was a mirror, a broadcast loop seeking a match, someone genetically similar or worse. Mentally aligned. Eli wiped his hands on his vest. "So what now?" "We shoot it, pray to it, offer it snacks." Valana tapped her gauntlet. "Neither. We trace the signal source." "Back through the crown relay, no," she said. "Down into the old AI spire." Eli went pale. "You want to go into the part of the station they welded shut and flagged with warning glyphs. It's the only place left this signal could be bouncing from." "Right, of course it is. How silly of me to hope for an elevator and a manual." They retraced their path through a side corridor choked with collapsed bulkheads and shredded insulation. Every step deeper felt like walking into a forgotten thought, dusty hot and humming with secrets. At last, they reached the lower atrium, a rusted hatch sealed with 3 layers of emergency welds. Valana approached it slowly. Her hand hovered over the metal. It was warm, not from the station's failing systems, but from something alive behind it. Then, as if on cue, the welds began to unravel, one by one, not break, not fall, unravel, like thread pulled from cloth. Valana stepped back. Weapon drawn, that's not possible. Eli didn't speak. The hatch creaked, groaned, then slid open. Beyond it, a corridor glowed with dull violet light lines of static, crackling like veins across the walls. It pulsed faintly with a rhythm Valana recognized, not because she'd heard it before, but because it matched her heartbeat. And from the far end of the corridor came a voice, not through speakers, not through comms, but through memory. "Come home, daughter." Valana froze. Eli stared at her. "Was that your mom?" She didn't answer. She couldn't, because the voice wasn't hers. It belonged to someone she'd never met, and yet somehow, impossibly, it knew her. The corridor was wrong, not in the way most forgotten ruins were wrong. Rusted pipes, broken wiring, flickering lights. No, this corridor felt intentional, like someone had built it from memory, like someone had reconstructed a place that had never existed in this world, and had done so just slightly off. The light didn't shine so much as hover. The walls weren't metal, but something older, smoothed obsidian, laced with traceries of glowing script that shifted when Valana blinked. Not runes, not language. Thought. Still think this is just a power relay malfunction?" she asked, voice low. Eli didn't answer. He was staring at the walls like they might blink back. Valana moved forward slowly. Every few steps her gauntlet pinged, not with data, but with echoes. Snippets of emotion like heat residue from long-dead arguments. Fear, obsession, awe, a kind of reverence that made her stomach knot. "This whole place," Eli murmured, "feels like a shrine." She nodded. "A shrine built for someone who hasn't arrived yet." They passed through a circular junction, the walls suddenly lined with rows of curved pods, empty, their glass cracked and webbed. One still flickered weakly, a low, slow heartbeat pulsing on the monitor. Inside, only dust. Valana paused. Her reflection stared back at her from the curved glass, except it wasn't. Same armor, same eyes, but the expression was softer, older. She blinked, and it was gone. Eli turned the corner and stopped dead. Valana." She joined him, heart spiking. Ahead, the corridor opened into a wide chamber, and at its center, suspended in the air by dozens of silver-threaded conduits, was a device unlike anything she had ever seen. It looked like a cradle. No, a cocoon, half organic, half machine, veined with pulsing blue light, breathing, and inside it, barely visible through the misted shell, floated a figure, female, slender, silent, and identical to her. Eli backed up a step. That's not you, right?" Valana stared. Her voice was a whisper. "No, but she's what they made me from." The room shifted, then not physically, but in weight, as if the air had recognized her. The cocoon cracked a single fracture, spidering across its shell. Her gauntlet buzzed violently. A stream of data flooded her HUD-encrypted pulse codes. Thalian command fragments of a directive she didn't remember authorizing. Protocol, spindle repair, and thread core host, pending handshake. Synaptic match, 97%, ready for transfer. Valana, Eli said, "This is way past messed up. We need to go." She didn't answer. She stepped toward the cocoon. Something in her spine told her to stop, but something older, something deeper, pulled her forward. She reached out. The glass responded. With a hiss of steam, it folded open. The woman inside fell forward. Valana caught her. Their skin touched, and the room lit up. Screams not from mouths, but from machines echoed across the chamber as every console sparked to life. Symbols cascaded across the walls like a waterfall of meaning. And in Valana's mind, a floodgate burst. Memories that weren't hers. A childhood in a cold research dome. Lessons in silence and service. Needles, data ports, dreams of stars she had never seen. A name whispered again and again, Ravari. The woman in her arms opened her eyes, not blue but gold, burning with something ancient. And then she spoke. "I was the prototype. You are the final key." Eli was already moving, trying to reroute power, shouting for them to retreat, but Valana couldn't hear him because Ravari had locked eyes with her and whispered, "They built you to replace me. But you're more than they intended." The lights dimmed. The threads in the room began to twist, reweaving themselves into a pattern Valana hadn't seen since she was a child. Not on paper, but in a dream. She whispered, "It's not a weapon, it's a doorway." The doorway wasn't physical. It didn't shimmer with energy or crackle with static or hum like some portal from an old Terran storybook. It was just there, a space where space wasn't a place your brain refused to acknowledge until your eyes caught it head on. Valana stood before it, the newly awakened Ravari. At her side, weak but alert. Her golden eyes tracked every breath Valana took. Eli stood behind them, still holding his makeshift scanner, like it could explain what no science ever could. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. "There's no heat signature, no particle distortion, no gravitational curve. It's just a blind spot. A blind spot shaped like a door." Valana's voice was low. "Relay 0. Eli blinked. "What?" She didn't turn. Her eyes were locked on the impossible space ahead. "It's in the protocol logs, hidden between the lines of every defense system, every Thalian archive. a fallback point, a final relay. They called it Zero, the one you don't map. The place you never return to unless... Rivari finished it for her. Unless you are the last. The word echoed and the chamber reacted. The doorway, the blind spot, began to bloom. Not open, bloom. Like some black flower made of memory fractal petals, unfolding to reveal a corridor beyond. Eli swore under his breath. Tell me this isn't how horror stories start. Valana stepped forward. No, this is how the old ones end. They entered. The hallway beyond was narrower than logic should allow. Its walls shimmered like liquid graphite, endlessly folding in on themselves. The further they walked, the quieter everything became, until even their footsteps vanished. Valana's head ached. Her vision flickered. Data scrolled in her HUD that she wasn't requesting, coordinates that didn't exist, command chains that had no source, and most terrifying of all, directives written in her own neural signature that she didn't remember authorizing. Eli gripped her shoulder. We're not alone. He was right. The air wasn't empty. It was watching. Ahead, the corridor widened into a massive vault, and at its center floated the relay, a pillar of fused alloy and crystal slowly rotating. Hundreds of tiny filaments drifted around it like spiderwebs caught in starlight. But it wasn't the structure that stopped them cold. It was what lay beneath it. A body, in stasis, another Thalian, older, worn, and unmistakably Valana's mother. No, Valana whispered. That's not possible. She died during the Halcyon collapse. There were records. Wreckage. Rivari's voice was gentle. No, there were lies. She was the collapse. Valana turned sharply. What? She was the one who triggered the original Rift experiments, the one who bonded to the prototype core before me. They thought she failed, that she destabilized, but she didn't. She transcended. Eli looked between them. Wait, are you saying this isn't just a relay station? It's a containment vault. Rivari nodded. For what she became, the original host, the first to hear the thread call. Valana stepped closer to the stasis field. Her mother's body didn't look peaceful. It looked restrained. Thin bands of light locked her limbs in place. Her face was frozen mid-expression, something between awe and pain. Her skin shimmered, faintly rippling like the surface of a lake before a storm. She's alive, Valana said. I can feel it. And just like that, the relay spoke, not in words, in memory, all of it. It poured into Valana's mind like a dam bursting a flood of lives she had never lived, timelines that looped and shattered, voices of thousands of lost operatives across centuries, all bound by the same origin point. Her mother. Rivari was right. She hadn't failed. She had connected. Eli caught Valana as her knees gave out. Talk to me, he said urgently. What just happened? She's not just a person anymore, Valana breathed. She's a thread anchor, a living relay node. And if we wake her, every dormant relay across the galaxy will reinitialize. All of them. Eli's voice was barely a whisper. That's impossible. Rivari's voice cut in grim. That's what they said the first time, right before it worked. Valana rose, and for the first time since landing on this forsaken world, she knew exactly what came next. I'm going to wake her. The moment Valana laid her hand on the stasis shell, the chamber locked itself. Not metaphorically. With a hiss of pressure and a thunderclap of unseen machinery, the walls of the relay vault sealed. Liquid metal folded down over the entrance, the air tightened, and the lights dimmed to a deep blood-red pulse. Eli jumped, his pulse spiking. Okay, so that's not a good sign. It's a fail-safe, Rivari murmured. Once the relay detects a reactivation sequence, it isolates itself. No one leaves, no one enters. Eli turned to her. That's not just a fail-safe, that's a tomb. Valana didn't flinch. Her eyes were locked on the woman in the stasis field, a woman who looked just like her, only older, more weathered, and somehow eternal. Floating in time, she was suspended in a slow-motion war between what she once was and what the relay had made her. She was the key to everything Velena whispered, the first to link, the first to hold. The data swarming in her HUD blurred, fractaling into recursive patterns. Command strings nested within command strings, neural locks designed for one genome, hers. And suddenly she understood. The relay wasn't just reacting to her bloodline, it was waiting for her. She was the failsafe. Velena, Eli said, stepping closer, "Whatever you're seeing, back away from it. Just for a second, we need to think this through." "She's alive," Velena said again, but her voice had changed. It was layered, not deeper, wider, like it carried weight from somewhere beyond the room. "I can feel her inside the threads." Rivari stepped forward, eyes sharp. "Then sever the link." That's not her voice anymore. That's the protocol speaking through her. Velena looked at her sharply. "You said she was the first. She was..." Rivari answered, "But no one can anchor the relay forever, not without fragmenting. Look at the filaments." She pointed to the strands floating off the stasis unit, thin silver quivering like spider webs. "That's not data. That's memory bleeding out. She's slipping. I can bring her back," Velena said, already reaching for her gauntlet. "If I bridge the neural delta and patch the anchor, I can stabilize her long enough to extract the core memory strand. She doesn't have to fade like the others." Eli looked between them, suddenly understanding. "This isn't a rescue mission anymore, is it?" Velena didn't answer. The chamber's temperature dropped as the relay's core spun faster. The hum in the air became a vibration in their teeth. The field around the stasis pod shimmered, and her mother, the woman frozen in mid-thought, blinked. Just once. But it was enough. Velena froze, her mind flooded, not with images, not even voices, but entire lives. Memories she never lived, languages she never learned, wars fought centuries ago, losses that left planets empty. A galaxy re-threaded again and again by the hands of operatives who never made it back. Each one tagged, stored, archived, all bound together by one phrase that echoed in every fragment Ghost Protocol engaged. "She's not just a person anymore," Velena said aloud, breath shaking. "She is the network. Every lost link, every fallen relay, every voice that died whispering a warning into the void. It's all her." Eli was pale. "And you're next." Velena turned to him and nodded. Rivari surged forward, hand glowing, trying to sever the interface. "Then we stop it too late." The stasis field collapsed with a roar like ripping silk. The figure within fell, not with grace, not with peace, but like a marionette with snapped strings. Velena caught her. Their skin touched, and the world split. For a moment, everything stopped. No light, no sound, only threads. Countless luminous threads stretching into infinity, each one pulsing with life, with memory, with grief. And Velena stood among them like a child lost in a galaxy of thought. Her mother, or what remained of her, stood beside her, but she wasn't speaking. She was the thread, a ghost within the protocol. And Velena knew, without needing words, what had to be done. She couldn't save her, but she could replace her. Back in the vault, Rivari watched as Velena's eyes turned gold. Not shining, glowing. Her body trembled with energy not meant for mortals. "She's linking," Rivari whispered. "She's activating full integration." Eli's voice broke. "Can she survive it?" "No," Rivari answered. "Not alone." And then she stepped forward. "Then she won't be alone." She gripped Velena's hand. "Let the current take her. Let the pain in. Let the protocol thread through two minds." And across the relay, across every dormant node, every silent archive, every tomb and tower left behind by the empires that fell, something woke. It did not feel like waking. It felt like falling through lifetimes not her own. Velena staggered through a storm of memory, no longer tethered to flesh or voice. She was a thread among threads pulled deeper into the labyrinth that lay beneath every relay. No light, no sky. Only a vast expanse of flickering data, each point a lived moment war cries in a broken sky, children hiding beneath cracked domes, lovers sending goodbye messages across collapsing space lanes. And in the middle of it all, a door, black, unmarked, pulsing. She stepped toward it, and it opened. Rivari followed. Not physically, her body remained kneeling beside Valana's, in the sealed chamber, hand locked to hers. But through the tethered neural interface, she was pulled into the relay's subconscious. Her mind echoed with fragments, some hers, some stolen. The labyrinth welcomed her like an old machine, recognizing a new part. Together, they moved forward. The corridor twisted. Sometimes it looked like steel, sometimes stone, sometimes bone. It didn't matter. The relay was not built in logic. It was built in remembrance. And its architects had died long before humans, or Thalians, ever knew to look up. They passed rooms, memory nodes, each one alive with voices. Hold the line, she never came back. Tell them I tried. Valana flinched. A door pulsed. She stepped through and was suddenly in a child's bedroom on a shattered station. A girl, 10 maybe, stared at a cracked screen watching a transmission that never finished. Tears welled in her alien bright eyes. She turned toward the door. Are you my mother? Valana couldn't speak. This wasn't her memory. And yet the girl had her face. She reached for her, then blinked, and she was gone. Just a thread, just one of billions. This isn't storage, Rivari said, her voice raw in the memoryscape. It's penance. Valana turned to her. For what? For surviving, Rivari replied. The original operators, they didn't build this to preserve knowledge. They built it because they couldn't bear to forget. Another pulse. The labyrinth trembled. New paths bloomed like veins, opening not ahead, but behind. The relay was responding, not to queries, not to access codes, to empathy, to the presence of minds that still cared. The ghosts had waited so long. One node burst open. Valana fell into it. Now she was sprinting across a burning field, someone else's legs, someone else's lungs, soldiers all around. A command whispered in her skull. Get the key. Get it to the relay. She reached the terminal, blood on her hands. The sky broke and the memory ended. She gasped, falling to her knees in the labyrinth. They died trying to protect it, she whispered, one after another. Carriers, links, all of them burned from the inside out by what this place asked of them. Rivari crouched beside her. And now it's asking you. The relay core loomed, not mechanical, not digital, but a being, a construct of so many layered thoughts and failures that it had developed sentience in the dark. A face emerged in the air, shifting constantly, old, young, human, alien, smiling, screaming. It spoke with a voice that scraped like data bleeding from corrupted tape. You have touched the fracture, but will you bind it? Valana stood tall. I'm not your slave, nor are you our enemy. We are echoes. You are thread. Thread must weave or unravel. Rivari stepped forward. If we help stabilize you, will you release the locked carriers? Let them rest. Silence. Then if you choose to carry us forward, we will let go of the past. A final chamber appeared, inside a mirror, but not just reflection, possibility. Valana saw herself older alone, locked in the core like the woman before her, hair silvered, eyes hollow, a future she could choose. But behind her another reflection, her and Rivari, together, sharing the burden, not anchored, but facing outward. Bridges, not tombs. She stepped into the chamber. Rivari followed, and the relay sang, not a song of triumph, a requiem and a rebirth. The labyrinth faded, and the chamber returned. Their eyes opened, the vault cracked. Eli stood over them, pulse rifle raised, tears in his eyes. You were gone, he said. No vitals, no signs, just silence. Valana looked at him, her gaze glowing softly, not gold now, but blue. The memory had settled, the ghosts had gone quiet. I'm here, she said softly. We both are. Behind them the relay spun once, then slowly powered down, still waiting, but no longer alone. The desert was quiet, too quiet. Eli's boots crunched over the broken gravel as the trio emerged from the relay's sealed vault. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting long shadows across the old outpost, making every jagged edge look like a sentinel watching them leave. Valana didn't speak for a while, not because she couldn't, because she wasn't done listening. Even now, the echoes of the relay pulsed faintly inside her skull. Not voices exactly, not anymore, but patterns, rhythms, emotional fingerprints left behind by those who came before. They hadn't just found information inside the relay. They'd found the story of the first carrier. "She was like me," Valana said finally. Her voice was steady but quiet. She wasn't chosen, she was conscripted. Ravari walked beside her, arms folded tight. Before the war, before the Thaline Accord, before humanity ever touched a neural relay, they made her carry the archive because no one else could. "Why her?" Eli asked. Valana's jaw clenched. She had the right biology, the right brain chemistry, but not the right consent. Ravari nodded grimly. And when the archive began fracturing, she didn't run. She built the labyrinth. She carved each vault from her own mind. She built the relay to trap herself so the knowledge wouldn't leak. Eli looked back toward the relay, now dormant behind them. She became the prison. They camped that night in the husk of a transport freighter long since gutted by scavengers. Inside, the wind made the hull sing a low hum like morning steel. Valana sat alone, staring at the data crystal she'd taken from the relay core. It shimmered faintly, a soft pulse of blue across her palm. "She's still in here," she said. "Not alive, but present." Ravari joined her, setting down a salvaged thermal flask. A residual consciousness, more than that. "It's like she's waiting for someone to finish what she started." "Then we do," Ravari said, but Valana shook her head. "We can't just preserve her. That's what the relay did. That's what all of them did. Hide, contain, delay. We need to share her, release the knowledge safely." Eli raised an eyebrow from across the hull. "How do you safely release a mind built from a collapsing empire?" Valana smiled faintly. "You don't do it alone." At dawn, they trekked across the canyon ridge to an old transmission dish, half buried in red rock and dust. Valana climbed to the console, adjusted the frequency by hand, and connected the crystal. The signal that erupted wasn't loud. It was clean. Clean in a way the galaxy hadn't heard in generations. One simple pulse, then a voice not Valana's but hers. The first carrier. "To those who find this, know I was not built for legacy. I was built to carry the burden none else could hold. I broke because I was alone. If you hear me, don't repeat my mistake." The signal repeated, across deep space, across forgotten channels, across every relay still listening. Ships stirred in the void, sensors flickered on, hidden factions turned curious, alarmed. A signal meant to wake something ancient was now reaching ears it was never meant to reach. Valana turned away from the console. "It's done." Ravari placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'd better get moving. We just lit a beacon in the middle of a storm." Eli checked the horizon, his voice low, and whatever's been watching, it just looked up. They descended the ridge in silence. The first carrier had passed the torch, but in doing so, she'd set fire to secrets older than any of them. They had no way of knowing who would answer, but one thing was certain. The galaxy was listening now, and not all of it would be kind. The signal had gone farther than they imagined, not just across the local systems, but through fractured relays, forgotten satellites, and pulse echoes buried in the deep code of dying beacons. It was no longer a whisper, it was a call. And something was answering. They arrived at the abandoned observatory by nightfall, following coordinates buried deep in the first carrier's data. The building sat like a crown of broken glass atop a basalt peak, once a place for looking outward. Now it waited. Ravari scanned the perimeter. No signs of movement. Yet. Valana stepped forward and pressed her palm to the door panel. A soft pulse responded. Recognition. The archive welcomed her. The doors creaked open. Inside, dust ruined silence and light. Floating in the center of the chamber, suspended above a spiral of scorched floor markings, was a thread. Not a wire, not a beam, a thread of light impossibly thin, alive. It pulsed when Valana stepped near. Eli whispered, "What the hell is that?" Valana approached carefully, heart pounding. The archive inside her knew. She reached out, and the thread wrapped gently around her wrist. She didn't scream, but her eyes flared with light. The observatory shuddered as old tech hummed awake power surging through long-dead systems. A voice, not one voice, but many, echoed in the chamber. Thread identified, carrier confirmed. Network link achieved, initiate restoration. She staggered, the light sinking into her skin. Images flooded her mind, worlds she'd never seen, languages she didn't know, lives not hers. A web of memory, not just the first carrier's archive, but all of them. Ravari caught her as she stumbled. Valana's breath came sharp. They were all connected. Every relay, every carrier, each one believed they were alone, but they weren't. "What does it mean?" Eli asked. Valana looked up, her voice trembling with awe. They weren't vaults, they were seeds. The archive had never been about preservation. It had been about regrowth. Each carrier passed on knowledge history, fragments of identity, not just to store, but to plant in someone new. Valana had inherited more than memory. She'd become the thread that binds them, a living bridge. "Can you control it?" Ravari asked. Valana shook her head. "No, but I can guide it." She turned to the console. The observatory's systems flared to life. A map appeared, stars, sectors, routes, glowing with pulses of soft gold. All the other threads, she said, waiting. Some were dim, some near dark, but none were gone, and all of them could feel her now. "They'll come for you," Eli said. "Those who want to use it, weaponize it, like Vaer tried to do." "I know, then what's next?" Valana smiled softly. "Then we don't run anymore." They would find the remaining threads. They would reach the lost carriers, and they would remind the galaxy that knowledge is not meant to be hoarded in silence, but shared in defiance. The first carrier broke under the weight alone. Valana would not. Not with Ravari beside her, not with Eli carrying half the gear and all the sarcasm, not with the stars watching, waiting, remembering. As dawn touched the horizon, the observatory's long, dormant beacon flared, this time not in warning, but welcome. A new age was beginning, one woven from memory, rebellion, and connection. If you felt a spark in this story, if something in Valana's journey, or the buried weight of memory, or the will to stand and fight when running is easier, stayed with you even just a moment, then don't let it stop here. Hit that subscribe button. Help us carry the next thread forward, because the next story, it's already waking up. And it's going to be louder than memory. See you in the next transmission.